guest. Welcome back. You're listening to the Cindy Laverty Show on CRN Talk. Thanks for joining me. And my guest today is Michael Friedlander. And we're talking about his book, Detecting the Scam, Nelson Mandela's Gift. There's a lot of things we can learn from Nelson Mandela. And one of them is by reading Michael's book, because it's really fascinating. So, Michael, we were talking about the challenge that we face. And one of the things that you say in your book is we have to develop a greater ethical sensitivity and we have to hone our negotiating skills. How do those two things go together?
Well, I think it was Potter Stewart, the late Justice of the Supreme Court, who said that acting ethically is knowing the difference between what you have the right to do and what the right thing is to do.
Oh, is that ever the truth?
It's really, really profound. And I think that all the high-profile scams demonstrate that, because what the surrogates, what my fellow lawyers did, is that they told Enron how far they could go. But nobody ever asked the question, what's the right thing to do?
Right.
What do you have the right to do versus what you have the right thing to do? And I think that, one of my arguments is that ethics, a sense of ethics, is a huge obstacle to scammers. Because if people know the difference between doing the right thing and what they have the right to do, that's a huge problem for the scammers.
Right.
Because when you start worrying about whether what I'm doing is the right thing to do, scammers got a big problem.
Well, apparently they're able to conduct their scam without ever having that enter their thought process.
That's right, because people want to believe very badly.
But don't you think we even do that not even on such a huge scale as with Enron? I mean, in our legal system, it's always about finessing and how can you get around this to get to that. And, there may be this huge blanket of evidence sitting out there, but somehow it's not admissible because it would taint the picture. So
that's right. I mean, law is a really interesting discipline because you're balancing all of these different interests.
Right.
You're balancing constitutional rights against somebody who's admitted committing a crime. But,
yeah, I've never understood how that works. I'd have a really hard time with that. Yeah. But that's just me.
No, but it's just one of the issues about living in a democracy in a country with a constitution. South Africa didn't have a constitution when Mandela was around. The interesting thing about Mandela, just to get back to that quickly, is that people compare the U.S. civil rights movement with the anti-apartheid movement.
Oh.
Big difference, because the U.S. civil rights movement had rights that they could enforce from the Constitution. There were rights out there that people had that weren't being recognized.
Right.
But they still had rights. With the anti-apartheid movement, there were no rights. So they were two very different movements.
So they had to create them.
Well, they had to create them, but there were no rights.
That's very interesting. I've never heard that before. Yeah. Never heard that.
Non-white South Africans were second-class citizens in every respect. They couldn't vote. A lot of the laws shifted the balance of proof. So the sabotage law, for example, the defendants had to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that they were innocent. There was some weird stuff going on.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. All right, you talk in the book about the duck school. Yeah, I love this.
My favorite, yeah.
Let's talk about the duck school.
Well, I call the duck school the school of common sense.
These are things that every single child should be taught in school.
Well, it goes beyond that. We all know it. And every child knows it as well. Everybody knows it. There's nothing new in the duck school. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Did you create the duck school?
Well, I created it in the sense that I wrote it down. But
okay.
If you think about it, everybody knows about it. There's nothing in there. So, for example, when I say...
Tell us what the duck school is.
Okay. Looks like a duck, walks like a duck, quacks like a duck. We might just be looking at a duck.
Right.
Point one. Point two, it doesn't matter how well-educated, well-respected, or wealthy the person is who tells us that what we're really looking at is a swan. It'll remain a duck until we're persuaded that it's a swan. It doesn't matter how many times that person tells us that the duck is a swan. It'll remain a duck. And this goes on and on and on. These are rules we all know about.
Right.
But the problem we're faced with is that we have what I call some flaws that we have to overcome in applying these rules. And one of those flaws is that, firstly, and I don't want to sound like a psychologist because I know squat about psychology, but we're all really insecure and we are all intimidated by people with hubris.
Yes.
People who are well educated, come from big firms, lots of money. And
Well, we're told we're supposed to be.
well, we think that because they're wealthy, they know better than us, and they don't. They absolutely don't. That's been proven with all the latest scams that are out there. They don't. The Madoff deal is an absolutely wonderful example of that. So on the one hand, we're intimidated by these people. On the other hand, we want to believe so badly that something is as has been represented that we suspend our common sense, we suspend our disbelief, and we are the scammer's dream because we want to believe so badly. And this happens all the time, absolutely all the time. And the other problem, too, is that we tend to look at things through our eyes and not through the eyes of the person who's talking to us.
That's true. That's absolutely true. We're okay for 30 seconds. That music's just a little hint. Paul's very subtle over there. Well, this is all true, but I think I want to talk when we come back from break about why it is that we just believe that these people who have a lot of money or have a huge education know more than we do. I'll be right back. You're listening to Cindy Laverty Show on CRN Talk. Stay with us.